We've brought Nubs back to the channel so I can taunt him a second time. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I have brought my friend Nub back here. It was always fun talking with you. We talked a bunch on your channel as well about Faction Wars. That should be kind of fun. Check that out. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Life is busy right now. In case people are wondering, no, my hair didn't fall out. It's just tied up behind my head. It is still there. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. I said you wouldn't be the first content creator to have lost their hair over this. I don't know if you saw Roadblock, but he recently
I
shaved
did.
his head off too. So he's,
Yeah.
it is certainly a harrowing challenge, which is part of what we're talking about. Because Hydra opens way too early. Let's get that out of the way. It honestly, if they had held Hydra to level 60, I would not really complain too much. Maybe level 55 or something like that. But Hydra opens at what, 40, 45?
Yeah, maybe I'm 42. I don't know. I know it's definitely way too early. Yeah, like I think for me doing it, I got it obviously the first week, couldn't do it. I think week 2 I could do it, but I was like, for a normal player, like that's just absolutely ridiculous. Like it's way too early. I know that you were saying you've got a 1 key now, what, about a month and a half in?
Yeah, this is my
doable.
Yeah, this 1 key is my 4th week, I think, of being able to do Hydra. And it's the 2nd week I've gotten any key, because the first 2 weeks I couldn't even get a key because I just didn't have enough with 3 everybody else here. And as we were talking, building a team, I've got everything you're kind of looking for in a team. I've got a reviver, I've got multiple healers, I've got multiple revivers, in fact. I've got somebody to deal with the fearhead, I've got a provoker, I've got a burner for a damage dealer, and I've got another direct damage dealer on this team. So this is honestly about as a complete team as you could kind of expect for early. But I think that's, it's obviously not the best example either, because not everybody's going to, you can start with some of these champions with various codes that are out there, but obviously Geomancer is a bit of a cheat code for this sort of stuff. But overall, what are you looking for in, it's really kind of, where do you prioritize what you need for Hydra to start? Because there's so many different things that you need for a team.
Yes, it's very tricky. It is very tricky. I do think, obviously, the promo code that we got from Plarium for this challenge should still be around, I believe, for, I don't know, at least a whole year, I'm guessing, until maybe the next challenge next year. But that gives you Ugo and Tagore, and that's fantastic, right? Because one of the, I think, key debuff for Hydra is block buffs. I think that's sort of essential, and it's actually quite hard to get good block buff champions. I know Loki is a promo code some people might have as well. That gives you one too. But Ugo's perfect. Like she's really top tier for this boss. So getting her in there, and you're building her anyway because she's healing you. She's AoE decreased defense. So it's like, I feel like that's so helpful for these early accounts. I think trying to do this without Ugo would be so much harder. So that promo code definitely makes a big difference. If you don't have Ugo, getting a block buff champion in there for some rotations, you can probably get away with it. But if Head of Blight start, you've got Ugo, or you've got HP burner, or like you're dead, you're done, right? Poison cloud goes up, you can't do anything, and you need to do stuff for those first few rounds because you're going to die pretty quickly on a new account. So
one of the things I want to point out, I've actually got a promo code going for myself at the moment too that gives you Ugo and Rector Draft, which from a Hydra perspective is actually probably one of the best starts you could get for that, because the other problem that you're always going to have, and honestly you just have to power through it if you can't, but dealing with the fears is one of the biggest problems for an early game account. And Rector Drath is still one of the better Veil champions in the game, because there just aren't that many Veil champions in the first place, let alone I think she's the only epic that does it really consistently.
I actually use her on my actual brutal team, which is now it's my like it's my worst team for Hydra, but still that's my end game account. 4 years in the game, and I just never pulled a better Veil champ, and she brings a revive as well, which is really helpful. So I'm like, yep,
amazing healing as well, and just very good champion. And now that's kind of why Ugo is in so many end game teams too. I've recently, probably in the last 4 to 6 months, finally stopped putting Ugo in every team I've had, because I'm finally getting better block debuffs champions, and it's not necessarily even better, because in many cases, to pull Ugo out, I need to solve where's my healing and cleansing come from as well, because she brings a huge heal and cleanse, and the decreased defense. You certainly need to find out where that is. She's just such a complete champion. Same with Rector Drath, and that's really kind of what you're looking for a lot of these teams, is you're looking to bring your best complete champion. So it's going to be the champions you're building up on your account anyway, but you certainly can pick, like I've got Monkey King on my account. I don't have him in here because I've got Ugo, so I don't need the extra block buffs. And some of it was, I figured maybe I'll bring him to another team. Maybe I'll get a little extra damage for that other team. And that's one of the other things I think we should talk about quickly too. This sucks. This absolutely sucks early on.
It doesn't make any sense. It's not scaled, right? It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's not. This was one of the things. There were cries for Plarium to make this more inclusive, and their way to make it more inclusive was to give people this path to get these chests down here when they can't actually get in the top 3 otherwise, for people that are doing well but not on teams that are doing well, for example. And while that's great for those end game accounts that are fighting some of these top end teams, it doesn't help the early game accounts like us. I would kill for a couple of protection or stone skin accessories, because they're 5-star or 6-star accessories that would be amazing. And if there was a chest that was under 35 million that gave me a single rare 5-star accessory every week just for participating in this, if I came in the top 3, give me something to do in this mode.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%. I mean, part of that as well is because it unlocks again too early. So it's sitting around for ages and you're not getting much that's worth from it either. Yeah, so it definitely sucks. Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, you pretty much have to get to getting this warrior chest really before you're going to get 35 million points, because these are doubled. So doubled, and even then you'd need to get probably 30-ish, because if you're only one keying this one, then too, that's only 6 million. So definitely something I think Plarium could have done a little bit better. But I guess what early game, I mean, are there champions that you kind of leaned on earlier? Obviously, Ugo is a goat. Rector's a goat.
So I think like the key for me, I think like when you're looking at controlling the boss, which I think is quite important. So that means provoke and block buffs. So we stop them getting like increased attack, reflect damage. We stop them getting poison cloud, and provoke stops then the head of decay from cleansing off block buffs and decrease attack and whatnot. And then I thought decrease speed and increase speed, combining those together so you can keep cycling through your healing, cycling through your stuff. I thought all that stuff together is sort of the key of the team. So I was looking to do that. Yeah, Jizzo is a great example actually for a provoke that you get, for a week? Is it 1 week or 2 weeks or something?
It's 2 weeks in. It's 2 weeks in now, because you get it's the first 7 days. You in theory get shaman. We don't actually get them anymore. And then day 8 through 14 is the Jizzo path. And he's got a 2-turn provoke. Great. Now Jizzo's not a great champion, but he's not worth putting as a chicken just because of Hydra. Now, honestly, he's a 2-turn provoke is a decent amount of control. It's better than my Taragi is at the moment. My Taragi is clearly a better champion than Jizzo.
Yeah, and he has an extra turn mechanic on it, does he? Yeah, extra turn on his A2.
Extra turn here. So. Unfortunately, he's throwing counterattack up, which is likely to get stolen, so I don't know if you want to use it or not, but maybe. He does okay damage as well. Not great, but he's usable. And that's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for usable champions. I think Broodlord's got a provoke on this A1. 30% chance on each hit. That's actually not bad early on. I've got one of them. Maybe actually, getting some accuracy on him and throwing him in as a secondary provoke champion would kind of interesting. Because he does also have an AoE for some damage too.
Yeah, I guess you could just rerun the boss over and over and over again if you've the patience until you get lucky. I tend to not be too bothered with it. I'd be looking for more the good, like a good 3-turn cooldown, 100% chance to provoke. I wouldn't be too pushed about less than that, generally speaking. Unless it's just a good champion like a Husk or something, it'd be nice. But
and sometimes it's making use of whatever you can. I mean, Selena Nightcloak's burns are not great, but it's a void rare. You might end up with her. This is better than nothing against Hydra, because burns are a good source of damage.
Yeah, exactly. For doing damage to Hydra, it's really, the core is, I think, 3 things. Burn, HP burn, great. War Master on everyone. great. And then Brimstone. So in our case, we have the Alice 5-star from the path. And then for people watching this later on, if you are, and there's a different legendary login champion, you get the soul. Great, go for it. That Brimstone could be so powerful, especially when Head of Suffering is there. As you put it on Head of Suffering, and he does his 2 active skills back to back. So he triggers Brimstone twice. That's a ton of damage. And like just from hitting in some War Master hits, a few hits of Brimstone over the course of the fight, and some burns if you got him. And I mean, there you go. That's normal Hydra. That's a lot of it done. And I mean, you've got really good, like you got Geomancer's fairly best in slot for epics, I would say, for this boss. But you know, if you have slightly worse champs than Bront, you know, it might take you the full 2 months or whatever, but you could get there as well, following that sort of that pattern, that blueprint. And yeah, you could probably be able. Oh my, he's got 2. You've got 2. That's just illegal. Oh my god, you could run 2 on the same team even if you wanted. You know,
I could, or you know, there's a second team. Obviously, I've got a reasonably filled out team in my case, so it doesn't make sense for the run the second one. But yeah, that's an option. So yeah, I know it feels bad. I've got the 2 cold hearts too, as well as I was talking to you earlier about. It feels really weird. I blame Hell Hades for that too, because Hell Hades pulled the on the 1+1 pulled the double pull there with Necmo and I think Kimmy, and I said, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love a Necmo, and I got 13 rares and a dupe Geomancer. It was
I think a nice champ I used was Prosecutor, who's a high elf rare. She was actually really good. I built her up for a couple of reasons, because she's a rare with the big decreased speed. And she's got multi-hits as well. So I was like, this champion will help me. She's okay for Hydra. A big AoE decreased speed. It's not 100%, but it's good enough that it's quite good. And then she got the multi-hits, bit of turn meter pushback. So she helped me with Spider, Fire Knight, and Hydra as a reliable decreased speed. I think the Ogre that you can actually get, you can get him guaranteed because he's part of the Broadmaw fusion.
Oh yeah,
yes, he is. Yeah, Rock Beast. He's really nice. No, not him. He's a Void Rare, Rock Beast, I think.
Know what you're talking
or
about,
Rock Tooth or Rock Beast.
Yeah,
that's the
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but he has he's Void, so he doesn't weak hit. I mean, or sorry, I shouldn't say that. He doesn't have affinity problems, and he comes in, and yeah, he's got the big decreased speed, 100% chance. It's a 4-turn, but still great because he's a guaranteed champion. So if you're really stuck, you don't have any decreased speed, and you want to make a bit of initial progress in Hydra, he's got a provoke on his A1 too. He's actually a great rare, man. Like I completely overlooked him, and he's fantastic. He's actually really, really solid. And yeah, there you go. He can boost himself up too. He's great. So I mean, he's only a rare, ultimately. You know, you could easily never need to build him. But if you're stuck, he could actually be a nice option that's guaranteed to get. I used Flannan. Yeah, he's a nice one too.
I like Flannan too. That's actually the only reason I didn't build Prosecutor, is because while Flannan doesn't do the big decreased defense, Fire Knight, this turn meter control on the A1, as well as the ally attack, felt a little more valuable overall. Plus, being a defense-based champion, he's certainly a lot tankier than everyone else. But yeah, he's usable in Hydra too. I bring him in as my second Hydra team. Not that he does great for it, but he's certainly an interesting option. Champions I think actually people kind of overlook is Haikatoon. You've got this increased speed we're talking about as a great way to cycle your turns, get yourself a little bit faster. Plus that speed aura can be absolutely huge, because that's effectively 19 bonus speed on most of your champions. She does okay damage too, and she can throw decreased speed with that A1 occasionally, not reliably. But you get her for free fairly early on. Decent for Hydra. Obviously, your starter champion, if you've got to use your starter champion, they're still decent damage dealers for some early Hydra as well. So you take your damage wherever you can get it. I like to actually talk about my first Void legendary on my main account was Leorius. I got kind of lucky there. But seriously, as an arena nuker, he was still a good damage dealer in Hydra when I had no other choice for good damage dealers in Hydra, because ignoring defense is still a very good way to do damage. Multiple AoEs, still very good. If I built him with some accuracy, I've got the weaken here. That's not the worst thing that we'll have on him. He's got the decreased defense. He doesn't have a provoke, but he's got decreased defense on the A1 he can possibly land. And then the weaken, you know, you throw some accuracy on him for Hydra, especially now that it's a lot easier to change gear out because you can save the gear loadouts and there's a chance to have the free re-gear. Sometimes you just use the champions you have available, and they don't always have to be best in slot.
Yeah, 100%. There's also area bonuses too, and like picking up some accuracy for Hydra is a great way to do it. Extra speed, ignore defense for some damage. It's expensive, it's grade 3, but yeah, I think it's super worthwhile. Yeah, you've been doing it. I think it makes a ton of sense. Live arena, I mean, yeah, you can just farm it. It takes a long time. That's the only thing with live arena. But if you've got the time to do it, just get it done and get your upgrades and it adds up. Lovely. Another one.
Yep.
There you go. 16 accuracy. It's small, but again, all of that is adding up to actually pushing your key further.
Yeah, especially when you need it's only 200 accuracy, I think, for normal and 250 for hard, I think, right? It's not a huge amount.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it's something like that. The resistance requirements are crazy high, unfortunately. So that's really tough for an early account, but it's something you can look in when you're a bit further. But yeah, the accuracy is not too bad. Not too bad. It's definitely doable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's you throw stuff in there. You're obviously not, in one way, the character class not being able to participate sucks. But at the same time, it also takes a lot of pressure off of you as well. It's not a case of, I'm not worried about getting, can I get 150 million on this to get my team more points? You're worried about getting this chest and getting out for the most part. And that's all you're looking for, and that's fine. Same with the hard. Eventually, you're looking to getting in and getting these chests here and getting out. And here's the thing too to think about for these chests too. These are the novice, adept, and warrior chests, and then the next level here is the adept and warrior chests, and then the knight chests. You are better off maybe running your best key to get this 1 chi warrior chest and hoping you can snag one of these secondary chests here than you are fighting for the warrior chest maybe here and then getting some lesser chests on here as well, especially if your clan is actually downing normal, where you're going to get those double rewards as well. So
that's a good tip right there. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, why get one warrior chest on hard if you could get a double on normal from your clan killing it? Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And it's important too, just getting the raw number of chests as well, just for the Mithrala fragments. She's such a good champ, and it's gonna hard carry an account. I don't think you can physically get her within the space of the free to play challenge, right? The 3 months. But for a normal player, getting that Mithrala is such a boost. She's so good and massively helps in Hydra, of course, as well. So yeah, that's something you definitely want to do. Like, that makes it worth it. You also get some decent gear along the way, some soul stones, but getting that Mithrala makes it worthwhile putting in the time and the effort to at least try get that normal down like you've done, or easy, or whatever it's called, normal, right?
Yeah,
it's worthwhile.
So any gearing tricks for some of the Hydra champions that you kind of would suggest?
I don't know if there's really any tricks that I can particularly think of. I mean, you could run someone if you got a good provoke set. I mean, you can always run people in provoke set. Good speed is always good. Relentless, any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like you're not going to have the options for gear that early on to really do too much, but I don't know. You like the immortal stuff? Just stay alive a little bit?
Yeah, just getting healing where you can get it in a long, prolonged boss fight is good. So immortal is something you get a lot of fairly early, so maybe some immortal to throw on there. Regeneration, clearly very good. Bolster, if obviously the Forge Pass is almost done. If you're going to spend money, Bolster is one of the better sets you can get early on, because it's just so valuable, because it's a regeneration set and a sealed set at the same time. So it's useful both in arena and everywhere else as well. So very, very helpful. Immunity, you can certainly use things like immunity to direct where the mischief is going to target first, for example, is an interesting option.
You can do that with blood shield a bit as well. Like, you get a blood shield ring from I mean, again, I think you're pretty far in before you're trying to target mischief, but yeah, blood shield's a pretty easy way to do it when you get some of that from CVC.
So I mean, other things like a shield set, for example, falls off quickly enough that it's probably not really worth it, because you're going to need to start healing yourself, and it might just give you one extra hit versus not necessarily affinity breaker if you happen to farm that, but no one's farming affinity breaker early, because it's no one is. But other than that, it's just build your champions the best they can. Impulse is actually, that's the reason to actually do live arena. The impulse set can actually be very, very helpful, both for the extra speed and that skill reduction chance.
Zeal's good too. And what was the if you go back up a bit, there was another one that I forgot about. Guardian set. That's a good Doom Tower set. Again, it's giving you the healing like regen and helps your team stay alive. That's actually quite a nice one. Again, I don't know, I found Griffin is fairly challenging to farm with weaker champions and gear, so that might be tricky. But if you can farm some of it at a high level, it's not really worth farming a low level. But if you're up at the top of the tower, it can be quite good, actually.
Yeah, again, a lot of this stuff is going to depend on your account and what you can farm as well. Obviously, eventually you'll break through to a point where you'll have multiple Hydra teams. I guess as we were talking earlier, it probably makes more sense early on to build the prime Hydra team and then just kind of do what you can to get damage on the rest of them.
Yeah.
It's probably, once you can build more than 2 Hydra teams, that's probably where you're going to kind of try to prioritize, all right, this is now going to be my hard team because this is a better set of champions versus my normal ones. But you kind of need to get to that where you can put together 2 complete teams before you really kind of sort that out, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's super complicated. I think it is so bizarre, going back to something you mentioned earlier. Hydra just unlocks too early because the developers have even said, okay, Chimera came out 3 years after Hydra, but they consider Hydra to be the more difficult boss, and that Hydra is more complicated. It's the more end game, late game boss ultimately compared to Chimera. And I mean, it's certainly true. I mean, you see it on the new account. I'm sure you find Chimera significantly easier than Hydra, and I'm sure all the viewers will find that as well. But yeah, it's so Hydra is not easy. It takes a long time, and because you need ultimately 18 geared built champions. And you whenever you get a new champion, let's say you finally get that Mithrala, okay, well, if she's going to come into one team, that means a champion has to come out, and maybe they swap into a team, but maybe then they brought a specific set of buffs and debuffs, like you mentioned with like the Ugo, for instance. Oh, by taking them out, I've got to swap someone else in. So it can become very complicated. So yeah, it's just the way it is, I think. Yeah, but it's just worth noting that if you are really struggling with Hydra, that's pretty much expected. Like it is extremely difficult, and yeah, I don't know why it unlocks so early. There's not really a point. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that has been struggle for me, and I don't know where you're at with your count on it, decrease attack, I think, is one of the things that I think is underrated in Hydra. Because
I had Sigmund, so no problem.
There you go. Yeah, so you don't have a problem with it. But the Wrathhead can pretty much one-shot your entire team if you're either not tanky enough to be able to absorb it, or you can get decrease attack on him. Decrease attack is such a huge, huge thing on him. That's actually where block buffs comes in as well. That's part of why block buffs is good, because it prevents the increased attack he can get on himself. But the decrease attack helps even more. Just a very, very underrated buff, and it's also really underrated in clan boss.
Basically making him do half damage, right? It's
pretty much,
pretty much. It's exceptionally good. Yeah.
So
he does it, but it's not super reliable.
No, he doesn't. I was just looking at it's 50% decrease attack. So yeah, it's a huge decrease in how much damage the enemy team does. It's unfortunately not particularly reliable, but it's there. It's better than nothing. To be fair, I'm not a huge fan of ally protection in Hydra, and it's not that ally protection is not great. It is more because, unlike in regular clan boss, the damage doesn't scale down a bit. So your ally protection champion is going to take a huge, huge pounding every time you get hit. And mischief exists. So it is very rough to get ally protection stolen, and then every time you're hitting mischief, if you actually can hit mischief, suddenly you're killing your own champion, because you've already got mechanics to do that in the first place with the pain link type stuff too. So it doesn't mean you can't bring him in there, because I've obviously got him. I've got a Verges floating around here somewhere too that they bring some ally protection, can be helpful for that. Taragi is mostly there for the AoE attack with the provoke, as well as a decrease there. And, poisons don't suck in Hydra. They're not necessarily the best pure way to deal damage, but there's enough heads that can take poison that it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of poison in your team.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no harm really. I guess also worth mentioning, Ice Golem is a good dungeon for sets for this boss, because I was thinking we were going over that, like Cursed is good. Like Mischief can be I was thinking, God, you wouldn't actually hit Mischief that often really, but Cursed, Reflex, Provoke, they're great. Retaliation's actually not bad either, right?
Yeah.
They are all great sets for Hydra. I think we were talking about like the Fire Knight sets for my channel for Faction Wars as being really good there. I think Ice Golem is the better one overall because you got Shield, Regen, Stun in here, and of course Savage is good. I think that the Ice Golem stuff is really good for Hydra. So definitely whenever you're doing some Ice Golem for a tournament or a fusion, be on the lookout for any of those top sets you get, because they can have a pretty big impact. Like, a good Reflex set on Rector Drath, get the perfect Veil up more often. A good Curse set, so you get Hex out and you can target Head of Mischief and actually break people free from Head of Mischief. that has a really big impact. Obviously, it takes a good bit of time before you actually build up those sets. Probably a few months, but yeah, you'll get them eventually, and they're quite impactful then.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that's certainly critical for a lot of these builds too is speed is important everywhere in the game. Speed in Hydra is even more critical than a lot of other areas. And it's one of the mistakes I still see a lot of early players make of like, oh, I've got percent boots that have some speed, so I'm not super slow. I'll do that. And unless you can do a build like I've got these boots on my Sun Wukong because they're absolutely amazing. But the only reason I can do that is because I've got a triple speed helmet right here, and I've got some perception gear that's got speed here, and I get speed hits right here, and I've got speed, I've got speed hits everywhere else to make sure that he's not incredibly slow. And so it's
he's still
difficult.
fairly slow, but he's fast enough for a Wukong, yeah.
Yeah. He's not a burner, but for a nuker that I'm going to use in arena, 190 is solid. It's a very usable speed. Wouldn't mind a little faster. Certainly at some point in time I'll get better banners for that too, although that's a nice banner for a 4-star at least. Yeah, it's just this is a hard set of boots to use. It just happened to have all the stats that were like flowed into the rest of the build that made it possible. But you're not going to find a lot of champions, at least early on, where you can put HP percent boots on them and have them be fast enough for Hydra. It's just not possible very early on.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Speed is, I mean, again, that's part of Hydra unlocking so early. The bosses, even at normal, are pretty fast compared to you. And that's why, as well, I think having that increased speed, decreased speed is very important. And I think you do hit sort of a threshold as well, where suddenly Hydra will become way easier for you, which is when you've got a bit further in the game and you've actually booked up your speed champs to be consistent. You've got like good speed on a provoker and a block buff champion, and you get to that point and you've got like, okay, finally, maybe you got your perfect Veil champ up and running and they're booked. And suddenly you go, oh, I actually do have control of this fight. And, I can keep the head of decay provoked most of the time, and I can keep block buffs up. I can keep decreased attack on Head of Wrath. And like, I now have control. I feel like I have enough speed. I can actually do it. Whereas I feel like for when you're trying it early game, right, you go in and it's like, I delayed them a little bit, but now they've cleansed and they're smashing me and it's horrible and I'm feared. And yeah, what can I do? So yeah, I think I don't know exactly when that point is. I'm guessing it's probably a few months in, when like you suddenly, I think it is quite a turning point where you have enough speed and the cooldowns on your debuffs and buffs where you can actually deal. And probably building a mischief tank as well really helps. And again, that's so much further. That's when you have a champion that has a lot of buff but also really high resistance, so mischief keeps attacking them, and then suddenly mischief doesn't start getting all your turn meter and doesn't start stealing all your buff. And again, I think that's another turning point where you suddenly go, oh, well, okay, so suddenly this seems a lot easier all of a sudden. I think that's sort of how Hydra goes, right?
Yeah. And we were talking about, I think, manualing some stuff. We were on your channel talking about it too. Don't expect to use those quick battles anytime soon on you're going to need to manual. You're going to need to manually manage everything. Because that's one of the things you can certainly do as well, is if you realize you can't control it by making sure that the cleansing head doesn't cleanse all the time, then you want to time your debuffs to make sure that the cleansing head does their cleanse, and then you land the debuffs that you absolutely need to have out there. Because it doesn't, for example, with Geomancer's Burn, it makes no sense for me to land it, and then the next play that goes is the cleansing head that cleanses that burn off. I've just wasted it for 3 turns, and it's, not helping anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's totally something you can do as well. Yeah, you definitely have to manual Hydra. And again, Brimstone is such a big part of your damage as well. And that becomes protected at 5-star. So you're not worried about it being cleansed. But again, if you can't stop the cleanse, I mean, landing that Brimstone onto Head of Decay, that can be great as well. Because he'll do his 2 moves actives. If you're not going to provoke him, put that Brimstone on. And yeah, I mean, just get the guaranteed hits is good too. But you do need to manually pick your Brimstone target. And it's such a big chunk of damage. Or then timing your burn at the right time if you've got a burner is such a big chunk of damage that, yeah, having that on manual is effectively essential, for a big chunk of time. I wouldn't, until you can quick battle and it fairly consistently win keys, it's not really a thing that's viable, unfortunately. It's more of a mid to late game thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and even then, the late game thing, it's, oftentimes, unless you're building the right teams, and I know you've done a video on that. In fact, go check out Nub's channel for all kinds of good Hydra advice. And in fact, check out some of his early Hydra videos. I think a lot of his earlier Hydra videos will be more relevant for the early game, back when we were trying to figure out what to do with Hydra, because a lot of us trying to figure out what to do with Hydra was either a lack of the champs to do what we now know we can do, or just a lack of understanding in some ways of some of the way the mechanics worked in some area. So I think that early stuff is actually very, very viable nowadays.
Yeah. They have changed the boss a couple of times. So like, don't watch the stuff from the first like 2 or 3 months of the channel because you couldn't provoke decay and stuff back then. So it was very different. I mean, I guess it would still be, if you don't have a provoker, it would still be pretty relevant. And then they obviously made it a bit harder recently, but I don't think that has a huge impact, at least on the situation for the free to play challenge. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. I managed to actually get all 4 heads severed at once on that one run I had, and I was really impressed because I expected me to maybe get 1 key and only sever 1 or 2 heads at some point in time, and it just happened to kind of settle on there. I think the one final thing I do want to talk about too is we're talking about Brimstone being very, very good. One of the things I found was very helpful as well is Geomancer having the AoE cruelty, I think on his A1, that cruelty does add up even as a 1-star. Are there any other blessings you kind of find are very, very helpful to have on an early Hydra team, even if you've only got them for 1-star or 2-star?
Well, let me think. Early Hydra, not so much. I think if you have a really high blessing, Harmonic Impulse is new. It's kind of okay. I would say one to definitely watch out for a lot of damage dealers is, again, in Harmony, it's the Nature's Wrath blessing. It's a lot of damage. You could consider, not great, again, a low blessing, but the Neutralize. You happen to have that on someone whose burn can get blocked by Poison Cloud, that could actually be okay.
That's still not a great hit there.
But it's not great. Don't get me wrong, but I do kind of like, Chainbreaker is all right on like your Cleanser or Reviver. I kind of like that. It's a low chance, but I think it's also sort of useful against Chimera because that has quite a few of those CC debuffs. So I don't know. Yeah, like if you find that could be helpful for your Reviver champ, like a Tagore or something, maybe Chainbreaker could be really good for a Tagore in both Chimera and Hydra, and it could have a nice little impact, I think.
Yeah, Temporal Chains is one of the few ways that actually can slow down the Hydra as well. Certainly this is obviously once you're getting somebody that's a legendary, so this you may still want Brimstone on them, but if you have like a Duchess, for example, early on, Temporal Chains is actually really good on her, both for arena builds as well as it's a little bit of slowing down the Hydra in some way, shape, or form. So that's not too bad. Nourish. I like Nourish actually for healers that are throwing continuous heals up as well. Especially because it's ways to restore that max HP, which is better than nothing. There's obviously a lot of champions that can throw continuous heals out there, and continuous heals are seeing a bit of a buff in the game as well. So that's certainly an option. Miracle Heal.
Actually, is kind of all right. Just throw some KLA ones on Head of Suffering and get the big poison. It's actually okay. It's not much, but it helps a bit.
Or you get a Bellower. Bellower throws all kinds of these things. Bellower is the king of Nature's Bounty. He really is. But Nature's Bounty becomes really good, even with this low chance. When you've got basically 4 heads where you're throwing these debuffs on, and you might as well give a chance of getting the big one. And the difference between, the big decreased speed and the little decreased speed is huge. The big, the weakens, the fear, fears aren't much of an issue, but interesting. I didn't realize fear is actually part of that too. So fear can turn into a true fear with this one. That's interesting.
I guess so.
It's listed right here.
There you go.
Wow.
That's true. Yeah. Fear comes true fear. Yeah, I hadn't realized that either. That actually is the most generally applicable of this because usually it's only for rares. Yeah, that's funny. Huh.
Hey, you learn something new every day. So
exactly. There you go.
Awesome. So, all right, I think we're going to leave it on that, unless you've got some final bit of advice.
No, I think we covered a lot. Honestly, I think just good luck, guys, and I guess one final piece of advice is something that I see because I obviously do new fusion reviews and stuff every time, and it's super consistent. Comment sections always, for whatever reason, hate Hydra champions like Wixwell, Aestrid last year, all of those, Mad Hatter. For some reason, the comment section always decides that these champions suck. And then they're like, but Hydra's impossible. It's like, well, I wonder why. It's because you don't go and get the champions that are good for it. So that's one thing to watch out for when you are playing the game for longer and you are looking to push more in Hydra and pick up good Hydra champs. Be wary of fusion comment sections being like, easy skip, man. Because oftentimes, for whatever reason, very commonly it is a good Hydra champion that gets short end of the stick with that one. Yeah, they don't like it for whatever reason. I don't know why.
I mean, Esme is actually a good example of that. Very good Hydra champion. I didn't go for in the free to play, and I don't think you did either, because we just felt it wasn't worth the cost of progression on the account, not because we didn't think the champion was going to be good. And to be fair, we're not focused on Hydra right now.
Yeah, if I was going to play the free to play account for longer than 3 months, I would have gone for her. But I mean, I already had Ugo, and I think for the free to play challenge, it only counts your one highest key. So I was like, Ugo's going in. I mean, Esme would be fine, but I was like, I'm not gonna have enough legendary books to book her. I don't know if she'll make a big difference, but long term, I mean, yeah, she'd be definitely in a Hydra team, no question. So yeah, I mean, everyone's saying she sucks and she's got no use. I mean, I guarantee there's at least several for 6 month players that are 6 months into the game that have now skipped a champion that would genuinely help them, and they probably have no idea because the comment section told them it was bad and they believed them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Bells is probably another good example of that. Bells was available for free, and I don't know if you've built Bells or not.
I did a test of him, but I haven't built him on my main. No.
Yeah, I built him on my secondary account, and I actually replaced. I think I replaced an Ugo with Bells, and Bells was out damage dealing Razelvarg while bringing block buffs and all the extra healing from the leech. So, you know, very, very good champion. Again, I think that's my lowest level key on a secondary account. So it's not saying he's an end game, you must build him for your account type of level champion. But, you know, outdamaging Razelvarg is pretty big. And that's really the danger of a lot of these things too, is we can tell you a champion is good or is bad. And that's always the case with this stuff. Your account's going to be your account. So we can give you general advice for Hydra, but what's working on my account is clearly not going to work on yours because, you know, for example, you've got a Sigmund and don't have a Geomancer. So there's things that you can do that I can't, and vice versa. So there's always going to be an individual level of what's going to work for you and what's not going to. But definitely appreciate the advice, guys. If you are looking to start a raid account, do check out my link down below. Rector Drath and Ugo is a great way to start for focusing on Hydra. They are covering two of the hardest niches to fill, and they're good champions everywhere else too, so go check them out. Check out his channel as well. I've got links in the description. I'll have a link probably down below as well to check him out as well. All kinds of great stuff there. Nub's been killing it on the content, and you know, just remind him to stay in the free-to-play challenge, and oh
no, all the comments, I can see it now.
But yeah, appreciate you having on, dude. Any final thoughts, as we mentioned before?
No. Again, just thanks for having me on. It's been a blast, and yeah, looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, sounds good. So until the next video, that is Nub, and I am Bront CatHerder.